Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
It's 9 o'clock, and this is John Robinson here, serving as today's special magistrate for the first petition scheduled, which is petition 2020-0244. And what I'd like to do at this time is ask those that are present for the hearing to identify themselves. Starting, I think, if I can clarify, we've got the property appraisers here, and the petitioner is not present.
The petitioner is present.
Oh, the petitioner is
Ma'am,
present.
you're there, right?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay. I didn't realize the petitioner was here. I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and have those introductions, if we may, please.
Yes, this is Joe Riley from the Seminole County Property Appraiser's Office.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else with the property appraiser?
Sosa.
No one else from the property appraiser.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Sosa.
This is Sam Sosa. I'm the representative for the property owner.
Okay, very good. And again, let me just repeat, today's date is, if I didn't say, November 6th. And so at this time, I'd like to just read the opening statement, if I may.
Mr. Robinson, can I interrupt you for a second?
You certainly
so
can.
on this petition here, there was actually a withdrawal submitted. So I'm not sure if it's showing up on y'all's end yet. So I'm not sure how you want to proceed with this one, if we still just need to go ahead and read it in, or I'm not sure how we should proceed.
From what I see, 244 is still the active one. I think you withdrew 245, which is the one that does not have an improvement.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Okay. I was looking at the wrong count, but yes, go on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That was my understanding too, so I just wanted to make sure. So, okay, we'll proceed with, again, I'll read the opening statement at this time, and it says that the board or special magistrate is an independent, impartial, and unbiased hearing body or officer. The board or special magistrate does not work for the property appraiser or tax collector, is independent of the property appraiser or tax collector, and is not influenced by the property appraiser or tax collector. The hearing will be conducted in an orderly, fair, and unbiased manner. The law does not allow the special magistrate to review any evidence unless it is presented on the record at the hearing or presented upon agreement of the parties while the record is open. And the law requires the board or special magistrate to evaluate the relevance and credibility of the evidence in deciding the results of the petition. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Let's go ahead and proceed. I guess at this time what I'd like to do is ask everyone, even though we can't see each other, if you would please raise your right hand to be sworn in at this time. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence and testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, if I could ask the property appraiser to state the parcel ID and the values associated with this petition property.
Okay.
At this time.
This is parcel 0721295001 00000020. And the just market value for 2020 is $2,242,970.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and I guess the first question I have before we proceed would be, has evidence been exchanged in a timely manner between the petitioner and property appraiser?
Actually, the petitioner just submitted their information, I guess an hour or so ago. I did take a look at it, and of course, they're supposed to have been submitted 15 days prior. But from looking at it, I don't see anything that I need to object to, so it's okay for the petitioner to use that information.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Very good. All right. Now, typically, I'll ask the property appraiser to begin the proceedings with their testimony and evidence. If that is okay with the petitioner, we'll proceed in that manner.
Yes, that's fine.
And then you'll have the same opportunity to do so after the property appraiser presents their evidence and testimony. Okay. Without further ado, then, I'll ask the property appraiser to go ahead and start going over your evidence. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Robinson, if you would please go to page 14 of my evidence. But the first 13 pages are basically, excuse me, boilerplate stuff and the property record card and such that we've already talked about, as far as the values go. So I just want to go ahead and identify the property and talk about it.
Okay.
Please let me know when you're there.
I'm there on the map page, 14.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about this property. This is a very interesting property for me in that this is my 29th year of appraising, and I have never yet had to defend the value of a cemetery or mortuary. Excuse me. So this makes this a little bit different that way. For Mr. Sosa's benefit and for everyone's benefit, I am also an appraisal instructor, and I teach the land class. It is my favorite class to teach. I've been teaching it for 13 years, and yet the IAAO does not touch on the valuation of cemeteries. It's considered a special use type of property, and it isn't something that they even touch on. So I had to do a little bit of additional research on it. The only thing I knew about cemeteries is that, in general, that they're valued on using a depletion model, similar to what you might have, for example, with a coal mine or an oil well, in that you determine what the value is of the entire product, and as the product is depleted, the value of the subject will be diminishing. In the meantime, though, the depletion produces an annual income, and you can capitalize that income stream into a value. That's the only thing I knew about it. And since the IAAO does not really have much information on cemeteries, I had to go to the Appraisal Institute and see what they have available, and I was able to find some information on that and about the methods that they use in terms of capitalizing income, and I will cover that in a little bit more detail here in just a moment. Since we are on page 14, let me identify this property more specifically. Excuse me. This is Highland Memory Gardens in Apopka. And the entire cemetery is comprised of the two parcels you see there, the parcel 1 and the parcel 2. So the parcel 1 is the one that the petitioner just withdrew. So the remainder is, of course, parcel 2 that we'll be talking about. And right below that particular map, you can see there is another map, which is an aerial. And by the way, in terms of location, this is located, it's technically unincorporated Seminole County with an Apopka mailing address. And this is also very close to being in Orange County. In fact, if you go down State Road 436, about a half mile, you will be in Orange County. Now, looking at the aerial, you'll notice there's a portion which is more or less cleared, and then you can notice that there's a portion where it still has dense foliage and trees. I went ahead and visited the property a few weeks ago, and basically the portions that are cleared are the portions that have already been used up, where they have cemetery plots already filled or, for the most part, sold off. They are still marketing these different gardens, they call it. The cemetery is broken into a number of different gardens with different names and slightly different themes. And if you look on the map page right below that one, I guess on page 16, you'll notice there is a big orange section that is colored, and it says area 25.5 acres. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
So basically, the portion that is heavily treed is still just native virgin forest. It has not been used for cemetery purposes yet. The parts that are cleared have the mausoleums, and they have the funeral home, and the barns, and the other buildings, and so forth. So in determining what the proper valuation of the property is, like I said, I did my research on the internet to see what I could find out. And if you look on the next page, which is page 17, you'll find that there are certain standards, and they call this the death care industry. And basically, 1,250 burial plots per acre is the standard. However, you can, of course, have burial plots side by side when you have a husband and wife situation. So you could theoretically have up to 2,500 per acre. Now, for my analysis, I tried to be as conservative as possible because I'm mindful that, among other things, when you're looking at this 1,250 plots per acre, I don't know how much space they left out, for example, for infrastructure. I'm sure that, for example, if you look at the aerial, there are roads that go through there, and there's some sidewalks, and there's benches, and there's things like that. So it's not like Arlington where every single square foot is used up just for graves. So again, that's why I think it's fair to use the 1,250 burial plots instead of 2,500, just to be conservative. Now, I also called Highland Memory Gardens just to find out, what their values are and, what do these things cost. And I spoke to their sales counselor, Kendrick, who is very nice. And basically, he sent me a quote for the cheapest cemetery plot they have, which is right around $3,000. So the cheapest ones are $3,000, and they go up to $6,900 for the more desirable ones. The more desirable cemetery plots would be, for example, be located underneath a tree in the shade, next to a road or near benches or something like that, and you don't have to walk as far to get to them and so forth. But again, to be conservative, I'm just going to use the $3,000 rate and just ignore the $6,900 or $4,500 or whatever those other in-between rates are, okay? So let me tell you, I'll go ahead and basically read the next page because I don't think I can say it better than the way I wrote it here in terms of my overall analysis of the valuation of the property. Excuse me, I'm froggy this morning. So here's the approach. Cemetery income approach valuation. Cemeteries are income-producing properties during the time that they are developing and selling the individual cemetery plots. Eventually, all the plots will be sold, the inventory will be depleted, and there will be no market value remaining. Of course, that's why the old cemeteries, of course, will have zero value because they're all used up. Until that time, however, the expected annual income produced from these typical sales can be capitalized into an indication of present value. Now, the subject is Highland Memory Gardens in Apopka, and it's been operating as a cemetery since 1960. So the entire cemetery covers the two parcels that we talked about, and it comprises a total of about 57 acres. Now, of these 57 acres, about 25.5 acres still remain for future development. That's the wooded portion there. So according to the American Cemetery Mortuary Consultants, Inc., a traditional cemetery, again, holds 1,250 burial plots per acre, assuming one grave per plot. Since many graves are husband and wife side by side, the capacity could be as high as 2,500. Talked about that. So basically, if you use this calculation of the remaining 25.5 acres at a rate of 1,250 plots per acre, gives us a theoretical potential total of 31,875 plots. Now, when I spoke to our sales counselor, Kendrick Moore, he said that the cheapest, again, are at $3,000 and go up to $6,900. So if you do the calculations of the $3,000 per plot times the 31,875, gives us this amazing potential gross receipts of $95,625,000. However, before we get too excited about this big number, it's not as though they're going to sell out the entire inventory in 1 year. As I said, it took them 60 years to fill up 55% of the cemetery, and I recognize it's going to take many years to completely fill it out. However, considering that this was a remote rural location in 1960, I mean, literally, it was in the middle of nowhere back then. And now it's basically on the edge of the Orlando metro area. I think it will fill up much more quickly in terms of the number of graves per year that they will be selling. Plus, we have the fact that the baby boom generation is of that age now where they are soon to be in need of this product. I definitely think it will go faster. Still, though, again, trying to be conservative, I'm just going to go ahead and estimate a 40-year sellout, okay? So 40 years to complete all the sales of those burial plots. And on the next page, you can see the calculations. That's on page 20. So we've got 25.5 acre, 1,250 plots per acre, giving us total potential plots of, again, 31,875. There's our potential gross receipts of $95,625,000 divided by 40 years gives us a annual potential income of $2,390,625. Now, I recognize, though, that this is not like some sort of a triple net lease. There are still expenses. Now, we don't have your typical vacancy and collection loss. This is not that kind of income stream. It's not that kind of property. But the expenses we do have, whenever these plots are sold, there are commissions on them. There's also advertising. And, of course, there's maintenance going in perpetuity on the property. So I went ahead and estimated that at 35%, even though when I did my research on the Internet as far as the percentage of commissions, apparently that is federally mandated. It is not supposed to be more than 10% on the commissions. But it didn't say anything about advertising and maintenance. So, again, 35% is what we use on some of our other properties like apartment complexes. I think it's on the high side, but I went ahead and used that. So that gives us a net operating income of about $1.5 million per year, and I'm using a relatively high cap rate. Again, I'm trying to be conservative on this thing as much as possible, and you can see the income value I come up with. So even after I use the most conservative at every single step of the way, I'm being conservative on the number of plots per acre. I'm using the cheapest price they have, and I'm even spreading it out over more years than what I think it will take. In my personal opinion, I am thinking it will be sold out probably in the next 25 years. But again, that's, I can't guarantee that. So I'm using 40. So no matter what I do, I'm still coming up with a value that is several fold higher than where we're at. And I haven't even gotten to the value of the improvements. So everything I can see points to the $2.8 million as being, if anything, very conservative. So this is what I'm seeing. This is what I get from the industry. And so, therefore, based on the information that I've been able to find, I think that the $2.28 million, I think that we've got, is well supported in the market. And so that's all I have for now. Be glad to hear whatever the petitioner has to add.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Riley. All right. At this time, I'll ask the petitioner to present your testimony and evidence at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson, and thank you, Joe, for your testimony. It was very informational and very detailed. Now, I know that these he's right. These are very unique properties, and it's strange to have to appeal them. In fact, we do legacies properties all across the United States. So we're not just stuck in Florida. We have them in several other states. But so just and I know that these are also unique in the fact of the depletion in the land and whatnot. So, but actually, there was no contest in the land, which is mostly what I heard from the testimony from Mr. Riley was really just an in-depth explanation of how the depletion in the land can be capitalized. So I'm going to move on down to the improvements. And really, there's not a whole lot here. And this is just my 2020 cost analysis. So there is two improvements, of course, one being built in 2018, new construction. I was unable to get the AIA construction costs from the client. So, but actually, when you look at my Marshall and Swift documentation on page 2, and sorry I had to update it or upload it in two different files just because I couldn't get this cost to print in color. But if you look at my page 2, mortuaries, funeral homes, this shows the base rate from Marshall and Swift for May of 2020 this year. And I've got C-class construction average quality, and you can see here that they even have it at $117 per square foot. Now, if you look at the assessors and how they valued it, they have it at $101 a square foot. So you can already see there that they're below market. So let me move on to page 3 of Marshall and Swift here. This is just the life expectancy guidelines for a C-class average quality mortuary funeral home, and it's 45 years. But that's, just the physical life. That's not even considering the effective age of the structure. So on page 4 here, I've got my storage garage, which is line item 1, built in 1961, average quality concrete block. I believe the assessor had the base rate at $61 a square foot, but this most recent version of Marshall and Swift that I have shows it at $59.50 a square foot. And then really the difference there on the 56.53 right next to it is just the local multiplier, 0.95 for Florida. And then I believe I just took the depreciation a little on down, because if you look on page 7, 40-year life expectancy, and I'm just taking the actual age, not considering the effective age. It puts us at about 59 years old. So by this schedule, it would be 20% good, but of course that wouldn't be the case. It's still in use, it's still functioning, and still operating. So I'm at 35% good on that, and I think the district is just slightly higher. So there's really not much of a difference in value between my workup and theirs. And then page 8 would just be the local multiplier that I applied to the storage garage, line item 1. And then just moving on down to the extra features, as you can see here, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but anything really that is highlighted in yellow was just things that were disputed. So there's not a whole lot of highlights here. And, you can see here line item 1 through 6, it looks like, are all part of that new construction that took place in 2018. So those were left as is. They're actually depreciating well. I don't have a problem with how the district is depreciating those. Line item 7 on the fence. In my Marshall and Swift, there's a typical life expectancy guidelines for kind of these extra features. And wood fencing, typically average and good quality between 8 to 10 years. Now, I know this is a little bit unrealistic, given that, we know fences can last way beyond that. So, but really just taking into consideration this for Marshall and Swift, I just put a little bit more depreciation on the fence and on the asphalt as well, because asphalt, as you can see here, it doesn't really have a long life expectancy either. And I'm at fair grade. I'm not sure what the assessor is at, but so that's how I arrived to my value on my cost analysis of $2,224,454. Like I said, we're not too far off from the districts. I'm interested to hear a little bit more in detail about the improvements from Mr. Riley. So that will conclude my testimony for now.
Okay, just for my benefit, trying to follow along, but on your the spreadsheet, the 2020 cost valuation, I believe it's a one-page document that I see that was uploaded separately, indicating it's $2,224,454. Is that kind of a duplicate from the property appraiser's figures, or is this just kind of your own analysis?
Right. So what I did was I just went into the assessors, and on their page they have it all itemized to where you can see their replacement costs new as well as their depreciated costs. So this is, in short words, yes, this is a replication of how they valued it, and that's why you can see 3 landlines here at the top, which is how the assessor has it. So I tried to make it as identical as possible to make it more quote-unquote user-friendly and understandable.
Okay, and as I see it, excuse me, that evidence is on page 10 through 13 of the property appraiser's evidence. Is that correct, Mr. Rod?
Say that again, sir?
Assuming that what the petitioner is referring to is your pages 10 through 13, the detailed cost figures that he's comparing his analysis with yours. Is that basically where those figures are coming from? Your pages 10 through 13 on the property record?
That's right. That's the parcel detail sheet.
Yeah.
And yes, that's our analysis on the extra features. Is what we call them.
So that
as well
is what
as the rest of it. That's the RCN on the buildings too, and the depreciation.
Right. So that's what his analysis.
It looks like it. Yes.
Okay. All right. Just making sure I'm following.
Yes, I believe that is correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. The property appraiser was asked to comment by the petitioner.
Yes. Yes. I also noticed that indeed the Marshall and Swift number that he uses, the 117. Actually, that's not including the sprinklers. The sprinklers would be about another $3 a square foot. So that Marshall and Swift would say 120. We're at $100.64 a square foot. So the Marshall and Swift evidence provided by the petitioner supports our value. But I would also, by way of rebuttal, since this is a newer building, I happen to have access to the permit value. Now we're using a total RCN on the new building, the mortuary building. Our RCN is $599,240, and the building permit value was $1,116,000. So basically, pretty close to double was the permit value to what we're using. So between the Marshall and Swift evidence that the petitioners provided plus the actual permit costs, again, shows that we're very conservative on our building value, in addition to obviously being very conservative on our land value, as I previously demonstrated. And that is what the Florida statutes require us to do, is to defend the overall just value, not necessarily even the allocation of the parts. Although in this case, the evidence presented really by both sides indicates that all of the parts do not exceed just value. With regard to the barn, we have it is indeed, it's a 60-year-old building. We have it fully depreciated, and it's got a total value of $26,000 on it. So, I think, like you said, it's still in use. It's relatively nominal. I would say the same thing even as far as the extra features go. I don't usually get that granular when it comes to the valuation. The way that we put our values on, we aren't updating, like you mentioned, as far as the asphalt goes and the lifespan of asphalt. I would agree that the effective lifespan of some of these extra features is not as long. But basically, once we put them on the record, we don't change the effective age, and they end up staying fully depreciated, usually for the life of the structure. And being of nominal value, we don't really worry about them too much. So I guess that would be my only rebuttal. And again, to defend the overall value, it appears, based on what I have discovered, that the land value is way too low from what I can see. It also looks like the building might be a little on the conservative side too. So all things considered, I believe that by preponderance of evidence that the property does not exceed just value.
Just a couple questions, if I may, from Mr. Riley.
Sure.
You mentioned permits. Is that information in the evidence?
It is not. No, okay. That's just rebuttal evidence. Although I can actually, if you're interested, since I'm at my desk, I can upload that to the site right now, if you wish, or if the petition.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say, if that's rebuttal evidence, I think that would be fine to upload it, make it available.
Here, I can do that.
Okay. And the other quick question I had at the moment was just, you mentioned a barn as building number 1. Building number 2 is, what is that property?
That's the funeral home.
Okay, that is a funeral home itself. There's two separate, second floor, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Have any additional comment, rebuttal?
No, sir. I have no further comments.
Okay.
All right, let's see. I will, let me see, upload this. Here, take me just a second.
And that's all permit data for the history of the property, or just two structures, features, or?
Let's see. Permit data that I'm uploading is on the parcel 2, and it actually has all the permits from 2018 going back through 2014. And that includes of course, the most important one, which is the construction of the new funeral home. And let's see. Hang on just a sec here.
Was there another structure that was demoed or something prior to this newer building being constructed?
I think there had been, yes. I think an older structure had been deleted. I seem to recall that in the notes. And I believe we took it off the record when the appraiser was out there to pick up the new building.
Okay.
All right, let's see. I'm cutting and pasting, and I circled the primary permit in red.
So just kind of while you're doing that, and just to recap, so the petitioner is not contesting the land value. Is that correct to say?
That's correct, Mr. Robinson.
Okay. All right. So it's just the improvements that are being contested with regard to this value. So, okay. Very good. Well, I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you for the discussion and evidence testimony, and all of this will be considered, and a recommendation will be made, and you'll be notified of that at a later date. Unless there's any further comment, we'll conclude the hearing. Any other comments at this time?
Let's see. Did you want to stay online while I post that document, or just submitting it is good enough? It's up to you.
It's
It's requiring me to turn it into a PDF, which will take me an extra minute or so.
okay. I can hang and see if it shows up on.
Okay.
Fellas, this is Terry. I just heard that you're close to the ending, so John, you don't have to call me. I will end the recording when you're finished with your hearing.
Okay, yeah, we're real close. I think Mr. Riley's just trying to upload some rebuttal evidence, and we wanted to see if it. I don't know. Would I need to, Terry? You're probably the one to ask here. Would I need to kind of refresh my screen to see it, or would it?
I think you will. Yes. Mm-hmm. F5 to refresh.
Not seeing it yet, but.
Yeah, I think he's working on getting you can't upload a Word document. You can only upload a PDF, so he can.
guess he can just let me know. He's got it on there on his end, and then we'll check it. I assume the petitioner has seen this document evidence, correct?
No. Well, I mean, not this permit. That's the only thing. Okay, let's see. All right, that should let me do it now. I've got it made into a PDF now, so now I just have to upload. Okay, it's there, and I just granted view, so everybody should be able to see it.
I do see it. Yes. I do see that evidence. So you've circled 1,001,666.
Exactly. Right, that was the main permit to construct it, and you can see the certificate of occupancy date of March 15th of 2018.
Okay, super. All right, well, thank you very much. I think, like I say, we'll conclude the hearing at this time. And so, Terry, you can do your thing.
Okay.
And,
Your recommended decision will be sent out, and then it will be approved at our final meeting, which is usually in the beginning of February by the VAB board.
Exactly what she said.
All right. I'm turning off the recording. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Happy Friday.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning. It is the 6th of November. It's about 11 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and dive into the next petition, which is 2020-0175. And this time, it's kind of a matter of proceeding. We'll go ahead and have the introductions. My name is John Robinson, serving as today's special magistrate. And
Dexter
go ahead, Dexter, go ahead.
Dexter DeBose for the Property Appraisal Office.
And Sabrina Robinson on behalf of the taxpayer.
All right, thank you very much. The parcel number that we are going to be discussing today is parcel number 1120 30 519 00000030. The Lowe's Home Center, Inc. is the owner of record. And
Special Magistrate, may I ask you a question? But I don't mean to interrupt. But would you mind terribly starting with petition number 176? I'm having trouble locating the first file.
that's no problem with me. If the property appraiser is okay with it, we can start with that one.
That's no problem.
Thank you. I know they're all very similar, but I at least need in front of me the specifics to 175 to express to you our property summary. I know both of our evidence otherwise is really almost identical, I think, in each package. So if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate that.
Sure, no problem. Are you saying that, first of all, I guess let's go ahead and, as a formality, go ahead and have the swearing in at this time. And I'll read, is there any, do you want to waive me reading the opening statement, or would you prefer that to be done?
I'm fine with you waiving it.
Okay, we can waive that then. This time, if you'll raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence and testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do. Okay. Thank you. And I guess the next order of business would be, as you were stating, I know these are three Lowe's prop, petition 175, 176, and 177. Is
There's
there
actually a fourth one, 178.
Oh, 178 too. Okay, I see that. Okay. Is there a preference to kind of combine these, or do we want to treat those individually?
From our perspective, I can tell you that all of our evidence is very much the same. My suggestion would be is to go through the first one very thoroughly. The property appraiser, I'll let him speak to it, but I believe his evidence is also very much the same in the packages, and we can point out, if it would be okay with the special magistrate, just the distinctions between the different properties as you follow along and do the second, third, and fourth one. But for me, for expedience sake, I don't feel the need to go through my entire package repeatedly.
Okay. All right. Property appraiser,
Same.
sound like good game plan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, starting with petition 176. We'll give the parcel number because I think it changed since I last gave the other one. 172131 5TS 00000010. And if I may ask the property appraiser to confirm the value on this property, please.
Okay. The market just value and assessed value are the same. It's $9,963,770.
All right. I'm sorry. 9,963,770.
770.
Okay, thank you. I showed a different number on the trim notice, so.
Okay.
Oh, I see it. I see it now.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking wrong. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, thank you. And evidence has been exchanged in advance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Typically in these proceedings, I'll ask the property appraiser to present their evidence and testimony first, with petitioner having the same right to do so after, unless there's any objection to that.
That's fine with me.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and hand it over to Mr. DeBose to discuss petition 176.
Okay. The first page is just an aerial photograph of the property. It's located in Oviedo, Florida. The next page is the contents. We have the 2020 notice of proposal, property taxes, executive summary, statement of compliance, property record card, valuation process, evidence request letter, and final statements and appraiser certification. The next page is the trim notice that was sent to the owner of the property. Then the next few pages is the compliance to the first and eighth criteria. We'll just flip straight through that. We'll go straight to the property record card. On the property record card, this is an owner-occupied Lowe's facility, discount warehouse. We currently have the land assessed at $6.18 a square foot. That comes up to $3,366,177. And then we also break out the extra features in which you have asphalt, chains, link fence, you've got pole lights, you've got loading wells, and it comes up to be $389,581. And then we also have a building value of $6,208,012, which comes up to about $45.73 per square foot. On our Marshall and Swift, which we'll be presenting later, we're starting off at $72 per square foot. The overall rate per square foot is $73.39 per square foot for the whole thing. It was built in 2001, so it makes it about 19 years old. The construction is typical Lowe's construction. Face block, concrete block, about 24 feet high. We have one area almost 29 feet. It's sprinkled, totally AC'd, 30 fixtures. It's got a fluid coating roof with steel joists. very secure slab exterior as well as interior to support heavy machinery and all the things that go on out of Lowe's. Okay, the next page we have is support for our land value. We're sitting at $6.18 a square foot. We have approximately 8 sales. They occurred in 2019 as well as 2018, and the adjusted average is $8.85 a square foot. We're at $6.18. The next page is basically, we tried to pull up all the permits. We didn't have all of them registered on our property record card, but we tried to pull up all the permits. For all of these Lowe's, you'll see different permit values. But basically, we're saying that we pull the permits in order to show that they're constantly improving these properties, but we have not changed the effective age on this property. As you can see on the property record card on the previous page, the actual age built 2001. The effective age is also 2001, so we're not changing that. So these next couple pages are just permits. As we go to the next page, it's the subject property of all the Lowe's. There's 4 of them in Seminole County. You can see they're pretty much assessed the same type way. There's no variation in them. We're at $44, averaging $44.99, and then the land value averages at $6.78, and then the building value is $77.98, and the average size is 137,212 square feet. We also looked outside the county for evaluation of Lowe's to see how far we're our competitors, not our competitors, but Orange County, and they've got 7 Lowe's. And where averages are pretty much lower than what they are. They're at $53.68 square foot for the building value. We're at $44. Their land rates are at $7.85. We're at $6.78. And then their valuation overall is at $96.07. We're at $77.98, which is pretty much below what they're doing over in Orange County. The next page is basically the traffic count for that particular area. It's a nice area to have, a Lowe's, great location. And then we have, our camera system is based off of like mass appraisal. So that's where our property record card, so everything has to pretty much look similar to each other. So we did isolate this particular Lowe's, and so we went straight to this page here, which is called the cost summary based on current Marshall and Swift rates, and it just isolates the property. We basically, it's the building size of 135,755 square feet. The effective age is 19, and we did a depreciation of 22%. The cost for the base is $72. The cost for the semi-base area is $40.31. And then you have the open porch and the carport at $39.75. And then you have a canopy at $18.60. We added the depreciation based off of 22%. We have a depreciated building value of $8,394,240. The property appraisal office is sitting at $208,012. So we're currently about the assessment for cost ratio, almost 81.91% away from what Marshall and Swift said this property should be. The following pages is a support documentation for where we got the cost numbers from. You'll see where you have the warehouse discount stores. We said it was a good warehouse discount store. It's averaging of $72 per square foot. Following pages also gives us an indication of what we look for the canopies. I should have highlighted, it should have been highlighted, but it says the canopy is about $39.75 a square foot. That would also include the open porches. We also like to note, like on the bottom of the cost analysis side where it says $72 at the bottom, it says you have to add in the sprinkler system, so this does not include the sprinkler system. But on our camera system, we've actually put it in there. And we also included the depreciation table where we got the 22% from in order to calculate the depreciation. So we added that in there as well. What we also have is a 2019 annual report from Lowe's. We pulled it right off their website. It basically says that the property is recorded at cost. then on the next page, what we did, we do it by a cost approach, and we tried to create an income approach to actually support it. So the rent that we actually have is $7 a square foot. We used a 5% vacancy. We have management fees and reserve for replacement at $52,078. We have a net operating income of $850,693. We have a capitalization rate of 7%, and then the valuation is at $12.1 million. The property appraisal office has it assessed at 9.9, so it's just for support. The next page shows their 10K, in which it mentions on their 10K that 79% of them are owned, which includes stores that are leased by the land, with the remainder being leased from a third party. So they do have triple net leases out there of Lowe's facilities. We request income expense information from these properties all the time, and we've never actually seen one. So what we do, we try to go out in the market and just pull up any LoopNet listings that we can possibly find to try to find support for our $7 a square foot. And the following information is what we come up with. We have a lease analysis asking rent for big box space, Altamont Springs, Sanford, Orlando, as well as Fort Lauderdale. The average is $10.81. Property appraisal office is at $7. The following pages are just the listings that we pulled from the internet to show you where we got it from. Also, as you keep going, you will see lease analysis asking rent for big boxes from 2019 Lowe's evidence. The average is $9.65, and the PA office is at $7. We also have consigned box rent in Seminole County. The average on that is $10.53 a square foot. We're at $7, and we actually received some income and expense information from another shopping center that had a Home Depot lease in there from 2018, and it was at $11.12 a square foot. The next page is basically from CoStar, still trying to find support for that rent. CoStar is basically only listing 2 facilities, and they said the net leasable market rent would be $18.63 a square foot. Following pages are just the Home Depot as well as the Lowe's, the subject property, showing you what the rent would be. We also tried to support the vacancy by C.B. Richard Ellis. It says the total Orlando vacancy is 4.2%. We used a 5% on our income approach. We also used CoStar. CoStar is saying 4.5%. We used 5%. We also have Core Pass management fees at 2.31%, net lease. We also have reserve for replacements at 23 cents, net lease on the following page for support of our income approach. We also included a Boulder Group report. It says net lease Lowe's property profile and cap rates. It said the cap rate is ranging from 5.5 to 6%. We're using a 7 cap rate. And the sales price is ranging from $15 million to $25 million. We also have more support on the next page for cap rate national net lease. The average is 6.16. As you continue on to the next page, you'll see the freestanding retail sales that we have accumulated. They're all over Michigan. Some of them are in Orange County, Volusia County, and a few of them are in Seminole County. And the average with a 15% adjustment is $129.08. The property appraisal office overall rate for this one is $73.39 per square foot. So we're just trying to use that as support. We did not rely upon the income approach nor the sales approach. We specifically relied upon the cost approach to establish the value of this property. Next page is also Boulder report. It also has the average sale price per square foot is $187 a square foot with a cap rate average of 6.9. We also included a couple of articles basically saying that Lowe's is basically who's driving the demand for new space, and Lowe's is included in this listing, as well as Amazon, Walmart, and various other big box retailers. So Lowe's is actually expanding. It's not closing any of its stores. It's closing a few of them that are non-productive, but most of all are expanding. It also says, another article, how Home Depot remains Amazon-proof. We also include Lowe's in this category. And then we also have other articles explaining how Lowe's is planning an aggressive West Coast expansion. So they're actually weathering the storm that we actually have presented before us. And then there's more articles for support that Lowe's is actually doing more expansion. And then we have the letter requesting income and expense information from the owner and the petitioner. And then we have a summary of professional qualifications. And that is it. That's it. That's all for the property appraisal office.
All right. Appreciate that. Okay. We'll go ahead and turn it over at this time to the petitioner to present your evidence and testimony. Ms. Robinson?
I'm so sorry. I had mute on so you wouldn't hear background noise while the property appraiser was speaking.
I get it.
We paginated the top right page of our packages, so those are the page numbers I'll refer to, Special Magistrate. So starting at page number 5, that's our property summary. And the property appraiser went ahead and accurately set forth the dynamics of this specific property. On page 9, we include the property record card. And within that property record card, it indicates that the value is based upon a cost/market basis. I'm looking at the page 9, the top right corner under valuation method.
Let me back up for just a second. I'm trying to follow you. I'm looking at, and they have two sets of evidence here, I guess. I'm looking at what was uploaded by the clerk, and my page 2 starts with relevant retail articles. Am I in the right document?
No, so that would probably be the second batch of information that was uploaded. What it should start with, the page 1 should be a cover letter on our firm's letterhead with Stearns Weaver Miller at the top.
Okay, hang on just a second. I think
Sure.
open.
They don't let you upload or download. I'm not sure which the right term is. The whole thing at once, it's too large, I guess.
I see. Okay, I'm with you now. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm on page 9, which is the property record card.
Okay. Yes.
What I mentioned earlier is our property summary matches up with what Dexter described the property to be, so there's no need to go through that. Page 9, under the top right corner, under valuation method, it indicates it's valuated on a cost/market basis. On page 12 is our site plan, and we give it for purposes of when our square footage doesn't match up, but we don't have that problem here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for some reason my page 9 is blank. I don't know. Page 8 says property record card, and page 9 is blank, and then I get, maybe that's part of the record card. Is that?
Page 9, are you looking at the pagination on the top right corner or the pagination on the PDF on the computer?
The right corner. I think they're the same, actually. 64-page document.
Yes. So that's odd. Are we looking at the same petition number 176?
Well, that could be the problem. Let's see. Let me back up here.
That would be indicated on our page number 1 on our cover letter.
Okay. Sorry, just a moment. make sure I'm in the right place. My page 9 is still blank. But
So our page 9, maybe it's, I don't know how it would be off by page because we actually physically paginated them at the top right. So what is your page 10?
page 10 is like, it almost looks like a second page of the property record card.
Okay, so somehow it seems like page 9 did not get scanned in properly. So let me just tell you what it is. It is from the property appraiser's website. It is the first page that would be of their property record card, and it gives all the identifying information of the property. And on the right side, under value summary, it shows you what the valuation method is. And under valuation method, it just says cost/market.
Okay.
Okay, and then I know that the property appraiser expressed that they relied on cost and they just backed it up with income. So we'll go through the cost. I have rebuttal to his cost, and we'll go through how we handled our cost as well. So on page 12, I had mentioned our site plan. And again, that was for purposes of where we included, because sometimes we have a discrepancy with the property appraiser over size, but we're on the same page with the property appraiser. And at page 16 is our cost analysis. Page 16 is the summary of our cost analysis. Is that what it indicates on yours?
Yeah, yep, doing good.
Okay, perfect. So we utilize straight line depreciation, and we look at the life expectancy guidelines for discount stores that are good, and the life expectancy is 35 to 40 years. Whether it's average, it would be 35 years, good is 40 years. We utilize 40 years. This property was built in 2001, so it's 19 years old. So we come in with a value. We take the building cost new at $7.8 million. We depreciate it based on straight line depreciation, and we also depreciate the site improvements, and we take that information off of the property record card, and we come in at a value of $3,127,204. And then we adjust 15% for the first and eighth criteria. So our depreciated building value of the building itself, the sales area, is $2,658,123. And then we added in the PA's opinion of land value at a little more than $1.8 million, and we come in at a total value of $4,470,313. I would like to point out, so our calculations are on page 17. We utilize the CoreLogic Swift estimator. So we not only depreciate for physical depreciation, which is evidenced on page 18 on that straight line depreciation, and based upon the age of the building, 19 years old, and the 40-year life, the physical depreciation would be 40%. We also depreciate, we utilize functional obsolescence where we believe it's appropriate. So in this case, the building is about 135,000 square feet. If you turn to page 27 of our package, you can see we have a chart of the 6 newest stores built in Florida for Lowe's stores. They're built from 2015 through 2018. And you can see the range is, the enclosed area is 107,000 square feet to 120,000 square feet, with an average of approximately 115,000 square feet. So significantly smaller in size than these 2000 vintage stores, which are about 135,000 square feet. So that's their newer floor plate. As you know, Targets went through Super Targets, and there were Super Targets. Kmart's had Kmart's, and they had Super K's. The model changes, and in line with, I think, just a change in retail overall to a smaller footprint. Likewise, Lowe's has changed their model of a store. So we also include functional obsolescence of 20%. On page number 20 and 21, actually it's 20 through 22, gives you a description for purposes of the obsolescence, talking about the market extraction method. And on page 19, we gave you 3 qualified sales of big box properties to demonstrate the depreciation. And one is actually we gave you 4, excuse me. One's in Kissimmee, one's in Port Richey, one's in Punta Gorda, and one's in Orlando. They're all big box stores, and we try to use, at least in the 90s and going forward for vintage, we didn't want to use older Kmarts that were built in the 70s. And I'll go through the first one on Vine Street in Kissimmee. We give you some basic market area information of population and household income. And then below that, we give you what the gross sales price is, and we back out what the land value is to come up with the improvement sale prices. Below that, we tell you what the size of the box is, the year built, and the chronological age. We then take
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you for a second? Does the property appraiser also see on page 19 what she's referring to?
Yes,
you have that?
I do. Yes.
Okay. For some reason, I'm getting another blank, but I didn't want to slow down your process. I'll have to figure out why I'm not seeing all these pages, but we'll check that
What
later.
can I do to rectify that? Can we send over another copy to you, or because that seems so odd?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting most pages, but some are just whited out for some reason.
Can I make a suggestion to you?
Okay.
If you pulled up one of our other packages, they're all going to have this same chart in it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's blank on my side too, but I made a printed copy of it, and it shows up on the printed copy.
Oh, really? So your PDF file shows blank too?
Yes, but I got a physical copy here.
Isn't that's so strange?
Okay.
How can your physical I'm wondering, Vexter, how the physical copy, because I'm guessing you printed it out from what we uploaded.
Yes, I noticed it this morning, so I was just making sure, so I just got a physical copy and it showed up. So maybe Terry can get you a physical copy of it?
Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah.
Would you mind requesting that special magistrate, and maybe we can just pause for a moment?
I can send someone down from our office to ask her. I don't necessarily know if that speeds the process up.
Hey guys, I'm here. I'm hearing some issue with evidence. What can I do for you?
Well, oddly, we're having just an issue with my file has some blank pages in it, and Dexter was saying his copy also does that, but he printed a hard copy and he sees it. So it must have something to do with compatibility from the PDF.
Okay. Tell me what it is. I will print it and scan it and email it to you right away.
Okay. The pages that we're talking about.
Well, just the whole file. Tell me what that is. What petition number is it, John?
Petition number 176.
And is there only one thing of evidence uploaded?
No, but I think it's all almost the same. I think if we just get one, correct me, Ms. Robinson, if I'm wrong, but if we just get maybe one petition 176, I think that evidence will be repeated to the other 3. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think the only distinctions will be is obviously the property summary will vary by property, as well as the income analysis may vary by property because the property size may change slightly.
Okay, let me get it emailed to you, John, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just really weird. Like I say, I've seen that before, not very often, but sometimes there's a document that's scanned in or something, and there's a compatibility issue maybe where it doesn't show up on the PDF. I don't know.
It's so difficult, particularly doing it over the phone then that way, because you know, when you scan it, and like Dexter said, he was able to print it out, so it shows it's capable of being printed. You're right, so it must be a compatibility when it comes to visually seeing it. But I don't know how to prevent against that, really.
Yeah, I've been there before and trying to produce an appraisal when you think you're done, and then you you look at the PDF of the report, and it's kind of like, yeah, where's this page? Why didn't it print? You know, so I've seen it before, but it's just I think it, like I said, has to do, I think, with scanning information, and while it picks up in the printed format, it doesn't always pick up in the PDF document for some reason. So.
Okay. Well, I can continue, and then we can go back and review the document if you'd like.
That'll be fine. Sorry to interrupt you. I just...
No. I appreciate you letting me know. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, so...
Okay. All right, you can go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
What page?
So I'm on the page 19, the one that you don't have. But I'll explain it to you for the moment, and then you can go back and review it. So I guess let me take a step back. As to cost approach, we don't believe the cost approach is the most effective way to value these properties to start with. And I would just suggest to you that when I look up in the appraisal of real estate book, it basically discusses the fact that the cost approach is used best to estimate the market value of proposed construction, special purpose construction, or properties that are not frequently exchanged in the market. So, and then it goes on to say that the cost approach is also useful when you're renovating or adding to a building. But what they do mention as well is when improvements are older or do not represent maybe what is the highest and best use of that property at the moment, it also doesn't take into account, or it's difficult to take into account, the appropriate amount of physical deterioration and functional obsolescence and external obsolescence of the structure. And I would tell you that I included in this package also, I don't know if you can jump pages easily, it's at page number 160.
Hang on, because that's the other document, I believe, that you uploaded.
Right.
Okay.
Is it difficult to jump to that, Special Magistrate?
No, I don't think so. I just, I'm almost there. Hang on. Page 160. I am there. Yeah.
Okay. So what this report is IPT sponsored research, and they retained CITES, RERC, to prepare a study based on big box valuation methodology, sales transaction analysis, and a market participant survey. And they came up with this significant document, and it talks about all the different aspects of how to value a big box. And what I'll focus on for purposes of this particular issue, cost, is that initially in their executive summary at page 5, they say cost approach has limited applicability without incorporating sales transactions or income information to test and or estimate the total depreciation present in a property. So now going back to what we were discussing earlier, that goes back to the market extraction method that I was discussing with you. Then if you turn to page 14, it discusses the cost approach a little more here. And it says that the cost approach is complicated for big box properties due to the lack of feasibility of development. This is demonstrated in the market by the absence of developers constructing big box properties on a speculative basis. The lack of market feasibility for big box properties requires a detailed analysis of functional and external obsolescence. This adds complicated and potentially substantial adjustments to the calculation of total depreciation and results in a less reliable indicated value from the cost approach. So there's two factors going on. One is that this is a 19-year-old building, and so pursuant to the real estate appraisal book, it indicates not the best choice of analysis for this type of a property. And then the more recent study done by RERC, which is actually very recent, it indicates that the issues come in because it's hard to determine appropriate obsolescence and depreciation on these types of properties. So we try and run that method by doing the market extraction method, which is discussed jumping back now, between pages 20 and 22 of our package. And then we give you 4 sales to indicate the total depreciation of these different types of properties. And it runs a range. And the range, when you break it out between functional obsolescence and just incurable depreciation, the functional obsolescence can range anywhere from 30% to 58%. And I'll let you go ahead. I won't bore you and go through the text of it. I know you have the ability to go back and review it later. But it all plays into that there is functional obsolescence likely involved in all these properties. And here it's more of an obvious because as the chart shows that I provided to you with the 6 newest properties in Florida, their footprint has changed on this type of a property for this retailer. But it's not just this retailer. I give you articles later which indicate that just big box properties themselves right now, their footprint is shrinking for various reasons, including e-commerce and the availability of using warehouse storage to ship because of e-commerce. So likewise, here the shift has been almost a little more than 15% in square footage of the stores. On page 23, we give you another article that talks about, don't forget the obsolescence and property tax appeals. And it discusses more of what I just went over with you. So we rely more heavily on an income approach to this type of property. Starting at page 29, we provide you with asking rents. That's on page 29, and then on page 30, we give you actual rents. So on page 29, we have 10 rents of big box stores, and generally speaking, there is a huge shift in what the rents are when you get above that 50 to 75,000 square foot mark. And the lows in general, the ones you're going to hear today, are all about the same vintage and are in that 135,000 square foot area. So the first one is in Brevard County. It's a 1988 built Kmart. The building size, it's actually the space available in the overall building of 230,000 square feet is 86,000 square feet. It was a former Kmart. They're asking $6 a square foot. In Citrus County, there's a modified gross asking rent of $3 a square foot on an 83,000 square foot space that was built in 1984. I'm going to skip the third one because of the age. It's significantly older. Number 4 in Orange County at 7501 West Colonial Drive is a former Target. It's 111,000 square feet. It was built in 2001, and they're asking $6 a square foot for that property. In Osceola, and I try to include here as many surrounding counties as I can. As I'm sure you can imagine, there's not a lot of big box property that it's easy to find on the market with rents available. So number 5 is in Osceola County. It's a former Bell's. It was built in 2008. It's approximately 95,000 square feet, asking $6 a square foot. In Pasco County, a former Target, built in 2006, 120,000 square feet, asking $6 a square foot. In Santa Rosa, a former Kmart, built in 1993, about 94,000 square feet, asking $5.50 a square foot. I'm going to skip the next one because it's an older vintage. I'm going to go to the one in Polk County, 1996 build, 130,000 square feet, asking $4 a square foot. And then in Taylor County, a 1984 former Kmart, about 95,000 square feet, asking $750 a square foot. If you turn the page to page 30, we have 7 actual rents. Let's see, I'm going to skip to the one in Collier. The Glen and Clay is a little bit older vintage. The Collier County is 1994, former Kmart, 117,000 square feet. The actual rent is $5 a square foot. In Duval County in 1985, built former Publix, now occupied by Floor and Decor. Little more than 85,000 square feet at $550 a square foot. I think the Lee County one is an outlier. Number 5 in Orange County, a former Kmart, built in 2001, 65,000 square feet, $545 a square foot. In Pasco, a 1991 former Target. It was converted to an H.H. Gregg and a Burlington coat factory. Asking $5.28, not asking, it is $5.28 for 101,000 square foot space. And then a Target in Sarasota, 64,000 square feet. The rent was $5 a square foot. We utilize those rents, the asking rents and the actual rents. And on page 32, we provide our income analysis. We differ slightly with the property appraiser in the rent. The property appraiser is utilizing $7 a square foot. We're utilizing $6 a square foot, which we believe is the high end of the asking and the actual rents that we just shared with you. We both take 5% vacancy and collection. Where we differ, again, is in our expenses. The property appraiser, I believe, is taking just a management fee and then also some reserves pursuant to the PricewaterhouseCoopers number. So what we do is we take 5%, and to be perfectly honest, I do these across the state. I don't think I've seen in any other county less than 5%. Many counties actually use 7 and 8%. Because if this were not the Lowe's that were owned by Lowe's and it was any other big box, you would account for certainly management fee, but you would also account for that the taxpayer is usually responsible for maintaining parking lot, perhaps roof, and other outside maintenance areas. So there's generally speaking more than just a management fee. We take our reserves similar to what the property appraiser is doing, but we take them below the line. So we have a total of 5% expenses, and our NOI then results in $735,113. We utilize a 7.5 cap, and I'll give you the information for that in a moment. So we result in an imputed market value of $9.8 million. As I mentioned, we take our reserves below the line. We take $23,214. I believe that's in line with what the property appraiser takes, but he does it above the line. And then we adjust for first and eighth, and we come in at a value of $8.3 million, or approximately $61 a square foot. Starting at page 33 is support for our cap rate. So we give you a couple of resources for cap rate. The first one is the Boulder Group. And the property appraiser gives you one page of the Boulder Group, and we're giving you another page of that report. So the first page of the Boulder Group we like to give because I think what it does is point out the distinction between leased fee and fee simple analysis of cap rate. So starting out for leases that have a long term remaining, and actually 16, 20 years would be really in the initial term of a lease. Most big box leases are generally a 20-year term with several options following that. You see investment grade at 5.25 to non-investment grade at 6.5%. As the lease years come down towards the expiration of the lease, you see the cap rate rises. And obviously, because that's where you're getting more to a fee simple analysis, you're getting to a point where the tenant in place has the option to leave, and you may have to go out and market this property. So you see it goes up pretty distinctly for investment grade 7.13 to non-investment grade at 8.25. And that's when there's 5 years and under of the lease. And that's where we focus our attention. On page 35, we give you the similar type of information from Avis and Young. And under big box, for first quarter 2020, the average cap rate was 7.28%, and it had an average years remaining on the lease at 5.5 years left. And you can see that's very much in line then with the Boulder Group report. On page 36, we give you freestanding retail. It's not necessarily just big box, and it includes all freestanding retail, and the OAR was 7.91. On page 37, we give you the CBRE U.S. Retail Power Center cap rate information, and we give it to you because in most instances, power centers are a collection of big boxes. In a power center, though, you have the opportunity to have foot traffic driven because you have a collection of boxes versus a destination of only one freestanding box on its own. So cap rate for Class B stabilized properties is there's 3 Florida populations for CBRE. At the top are Tier 1. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and West Palm. Those are 7.5 to 8.5. And then if you go down to Tier 2, the closest to you would be Orlando. So Class A is between 7 to 8, and cap rate for stabilized properties Class B are 7.75 to 9. So we utilize all these pieces of information, and we conclude to a 7.5. And I would point out that the cap rate information utilized by the property appraiser from that Boulder report on first page of the Boulder report, which concluded to a 6.9 cap rate, it's really in line with what I'm discussing because the average lease term remaining on that average cap rate was 12.7 years. So there was still a long period of time left on those leases, so there was much more certainty involved. But as you get towards the fee simple analysis of coming to the end of a lease term, the cap rate would go up. So I think the 7.5% is really very much in line with that analysis. I also wanted to point out to you, dealing with cap rate, let me just find you the right page. So on the Citus RERC report that we were discussing earlier, on page 57 of that report, which is actually our page 203, it gives you a description of greater than 50,000 square foot boxes that they analyze, and it gives you what the cap rate is and the averages. And for investment grade with terms of life remaining at 6.57 to non-investment grade at 7.25 to 7.66. Again, it's very much in line with the other studies we had. And it also talks about how the data demonstrates that higher quality credit rated tenants with long-term leases are associated with lower cap rates, and then the reverse is true as well. So since we're supposed to be looking at a fee simple analysis, we have to not be looking really at the creditworthiness of this particular tenant, and we should be looking at as if the property is vacant or going to be vacant soon, and it would be on the open market. We do give you the credit information as to this tenant on page 39, and it is absolutely a creditworthy tenant, but it's a B creditworthy tenant. What would be a BBB plus, as noted by Moody's. It was been downgraded over the last several cycles, and it's assigned a BAA1 rating. And then on page 41, it gives you a description of what a BAA1 rating is. And it equates to a BBB plus rating, as is described by other different agencies. On page 42, it also describes it as an obligor that has adequate capacity to meet its financial commitments. So a step below extremely strong capacity, very strong capacity, and strong capacity. It's adequate capacity, so more of an average. On page 44, we provide some vacant land sales. And what we try to do is focus on large commercial vacant sales. Our land is on at about $6 a square foot. We think there's room for adjustment based upon these sales. There's several in this specific market. Sale number 1. There's just one actually in this specific market, sale number 1, but they're all vacant general commercial sales. They're all larger lot size, and we took sales from December of 2017 through April of 2019, and the average was a little more than $3 a square foot. Our further support on a market basis is our big box sales, starting on page number 47. And again, there's not a lot of big box sales in any one county. So what we did is we tried to look at counties that have big box properties, some of them hopefully closer to your area, of which we have several on here. So sale number 1 is in Orange County. It's an April of 16 sale. It sold for $33 a square foot. It's a former Walmart. In Osceola County, which is the sale number 4, it was a big box of 96,000 square feet, a newer vintage built in 2013. It sold for $67 a square foot, or $57 after a cost of sale. And then if you turn the page, just considering surrounding counties, Brevard County had a former Kmart that was built in 69 but completely renovated in 2005. A 73,000 square foot store sold in March of 2019 for $43 a square foot, and after a cost of sale, $36 a square foot. And then we do have 2 in Seminole County. One was built in 1979 and rehabbed in 1993. It sold in August 19. It was a former Kmart. It sold for $36 a square foot before an adjustment for first and eighth, and $31 after. And then a former Sears at Town Center Drive. It was a 121,000 square foot store, sold in September of 19 for $39 a square foot, and after a cost of sale, $34 a square foot. I'd like to just talk about the sales for a moment, too, and take you back again, if I could, to the Citus RERC report. So in their analysis, they looked at 740 sales. And what they found was, I just want to get you to the right page. Page number... Page number 6, it's your page number 152, excuse me. In the summary, they described, so they looked at 740 big box sales transactions, and when you looked at building size, what they determined was the average sale price per square foot for boxes, and they broke it down into two sizes. Between the smaller junior boxes between 30,000 and 50,000 square feet, the average was $55 per square foot, a sale price. And then those properties greater than 50,000 square feet, they found that the average price per square foot in sales was $26 per square foot. They also analyzed deed restrictions on these sales, and their analysis indicated that the deed restrictions do not have a negative impact on the sale price of a fee simple big box property over 50,000 square feet. They go into much further discussion of these, and they break them down by size later in the package. I won't bore you with going through each page of it, but the summary of it is just as cited in their executive summary at the beginning. So I think my point in raising that is the sales I've gone through with you, the improved sales, are very much in line with what RERC determined in their overall analysis of these 740 big box sale properties. They fall squarely in line with those sale prices. The next thing I wanted to point out to you is on page 50.
Okay, page 50 of the supplemental or page 50 of your...
Page 50 of the original package, please.
Of the 64-page document?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, page 50. Yeah, I do have that page which shows a comparable assessment.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we did was we looked in Seminole County at big box retail. We're assessed at approximately $80 per square foot for the subject property. And we took a look at a lot of big box. Obviously, Targets, Walmarts, Kohl's are far more built out than the subject property. I mean, we are really warehouse-type property. Concrete floor, not finished ceiling. So it's very much a warehouse-type property. So within these comparable assessments, number 3 is a Sam's Club, built in 1987, assessed at $60 per square foot. The adjusted area was 132,000 square feet, so very similar in size. Number 9 is a Home Depot of about 105,000 square feet, built in 1991, assessed at $64 a square foot. Number 12 is a Home Depot, about 107,000 square feet, built in 1993 at $67 a square foot. And number 13 is a Home Depot, about 102,000 square feet, built in 1991 at $68 a square feet. So we just give you that for purposes of comparison. I know the property appraiser gave you a grouping of Lowe's stores from Orange County to compare the comparable assessments to, but we thought it was very relevant to compare to other big boxes within the county itself. And interestingly, even the stores that have significantly more built out finished space, like I just mentioned, the Targets, the Kohl's, they are all assessed also. The average of all of these 13 comparable assessments is about $61 a square foot, even for stores that are far more finished out. We're coming in at $80 a square foot. On page number 52, I provide you with the statute that allows you to consider comparable assessments of like-type properties. It's statute 194.034, and it's actually subparagraph number 5, which lands on page 53. So we give you several articles as well talking about smaller footprints of stores, the effects of e-commerce. No one's saying that Lowe's is going anywhere. I did share with you their credit rating, though. They do not enjoy the same credit rating as a Home Depot, which is an A-rated tenant, an A-rated credit-worthy tenant. They are as I pointed out, they call it capable of adequate covering their financing. So their rating has actually gone down slightly in the last year. If you have any questions about the rents or the sales, I have a lot of backup information with me. We only use sales that were qualified, though. And again, I think our sales fall right in line with the far larger study that RERC performed of 740 stores. Our cap rate information is well supported by the several pieces of evidence we provided you, and we believe that based upon the age of the store and the obsolescence that should be taken into account, we believe that the best way to look at this would be based upon an income analysis. If you want to let me know if you have any questions, and then please let me know if you'd like me to rebut the property appraisers or you would like the property appraiser to rebut our evidence first.
You can go ahead.
Okay. What'd you say, Dexter?
You can go ahead and rebut our information.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay, fine. Let me just get to the beginning of your package. Okay, so I'll go through the property appraisers package then, Special Magistrate. Starting with page, let's see, let me get to the meat and potatoes part. Okay, so I'd like to start on page 9. I'm looking at it on my computer, so hopefully the page numbers match up. It's the 2020 parcel detail sheet. Is that what you're showing?
Page 9.
It should be titled 2020 Parcel Detail Sheet.
Yes, I am with you.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to point out a couple of things on that. So as I mentioned earlier, on the property record card, it indicated the property was being looked at on a cost/market basis. And hopefully when you get the full package, you'll be able to see that on our printout that we had in there. And Dexter had testified earlier that they are really relying on the cost approach and only utilizing the income approach and the sales approach for support. So a couple of things interested me on here. The first is that if you look on the left-hand side under assessment information, you can see the cost for the building value. The prior year showed $6,119,846, and then for 2020, it's a little more than $6.2 million. So it actually increased in value. So I understand how land value can increase from year to year based upon sales of land, but it didn't seem to me that the building value should increase from year to year. It should be further depreciating, if anything. And the permit activity that was shown doesn't indicate anything which would warrant an increase in the building value. My strong guess is the permit information that we saw is really maintaining the subject property. I believe the property appraiser testified as well that the permits did not change the effective age of the building. So the other thing that was interesting to me on the parcel detail sheet, I'm on page 11. On the right side, it gives the breakdown of the reconstruction cost new.
Right.
You're there? Okay. So when you add up all those values for the reconstruction cost new, it comes in at about $7.2 million, which equates to $53 a square foot. So I know the property appraiser said this is their CAMA mass appraisal system, but I wanted you to note that when you take that $7.2 million and you divide it by the square footage of the store, that base rate amounts to $53 and change. The property appraiser on their cost analysis is utilizing a base rate of $72 a square foot because they're considering from Marshall and Swift, they're looking at it as good versus an average building. So I'll address that in a moment with you. Let's see, it's at page, I'm going to jump for a moment. It's at page number 20 of their package.
Okay, the Marshall cost calculator.
The calculator method. So the prior page, page 19, you can see at the top under building value, they show cost per square foot $72 and their analysis. And then when you go to page 20, you can see that when you look at warehouse discount stores, that matches up to warehouse discount store C, but good. And if you scroll across to the very right, you'll see that that comes in at $72 a square foot. So obviously the $72 a square foot is not in line with what the property appraiser analyzes on their parcel detail sheet, which was at $53.28 a square foot. We analyze it we would look at it as average, and that would support really the $53 a square foot. That comes in at $55 a square foot. It's the second line underneath good. And if you read the description of them, I think that it shows that it's much more in line with what this type of store is. And again, as I mentioned to you, I handle these across the state. I have truly never seen a property of this nature, the Lowe's stores, analyzed with anything other than average as the base rate. When you read the description, good is plaster or drywall, partitioned offices, good finished ceilings, and vinyl floors. Average is painted walls, some partitions, office area, vinyl composition, and acoustics. And when you go to the light, it says adequate lighting, restrooms, and the one that's good says adequate outlets and restrooms, fluorescent lighting, and good extras. When you walk into a Lowe's store, it's a polished concrete floor. There is no finished ceiling. It's open ceiling. There's very little partitioning. There's not anything by the nature of what would be considered good extras. It's an average open store. So we think that the premise that the property appraiser is starting off with on their analysis to support their position now on page 19 is flawed in that it's starting off with the wrong base rate. And again, further support for that is that their CAMA system, which they utilize to value the properties at the outset, amounts to $53 a square foot, which is in line with my argument. So that's the first problem we have with the property appraiser's analysis. The second problem we have with it is that it includes no functional obsolescence. And as I mentioned to you, this is a 2001 built store. We're in 2020 now. It's 19 years old. The floor plans for these new stores have completely changed. They're 15% smaller at a minimum. The range is between 15 to 20% really. So we believe that there needs to be some functional obsolescence included as well. So we just think that the way this is analyzed is flawed. In addition, that we don't believe that cost based upon the Appraisal Institute's definition, as well as the study by RERC, believes that this is the right way to analyze this type of property. The other thing I would point out to you is they conclude on page 19 to a value of $12.1 million. There doesn't seem to be a relationship between that $12.1 million to the assessed value of $9.9 million. The other thing I would point out as far as rebuttal goes is because the property appraiser, I know, had compared themselves to Orange County for comparable assessment purposes. But just to support what I shared with you earlier, that I don't see other property appraisers starting out with a base rate that is equivalent to what is called a good store versus an average. In Orange County as well, I grabbed two pieces of evidence from the properties that I handled last year in Orange County, one being on Colonial Drive, and the base rate was $48.55. And once they added in some additions for things like heating, cooling, ventilation, it came up to $56 a square foot. And likewise, their store in 1651 West Orange Blossom Trail started with a base square footage rate without air conditioning at 48. Once they add in the air conditioning, they came up to 56. So again, it's just additional support for the fact that I believe they're starting off at the wrong base rate. So I don't believe they've met their burden if they're relying on costs to analyze the property based upon this analysis. I'm just scrolling through the package to get to my next set of discussion. So page number 26 is from Lowe's annual report. And I believe that the property appraiser is utilizing a line from this annual report to support their position to assess based on cost, because it says the property is recorded at cost. That is for federal income tax and federal reporting purposes, which is distinctly different than property tax appraisal. As to their income analysis, which starts at page 27, you give me just a moment. I'm just trying to get to the right information. Okay, so we're utilizing $6 versus their $7. I'm going to go through their rent comps. I believe our rent comps are more similar to the type of property we are, because I believe the bulk of the rent comps utilized by the property appraiser are significantly smaller than the subject property, so they would need some much larger adjustments. We're providing you with properties that are truly all big box properties. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a huge distinction between a box that's 50,000 square feet, 75,000 square feet versus one that is over that 100,000 square foot mark. And it's that inverse relationship. The larger the box, the less the rent. And I believe I pointed it out to you as well with the RERC report, which actually broke down their study to those boxes when they were analyzing it between 30 and 50,000 square feet, and those boxes over 50,000 square feet. But again, you do see a jump up also for boxes that are over 100,000 square feet, or even different than those at like 70,000 square feet. So our distinction, first of all, is in the market rent, $6 versus $7. Again, I believe we went through my support. I will give you my comments on their support for the $7. We agree on the vacancy and collection. And as to the expenses, the property appraiser is solely utilizing management fees of 2.31%, and then taking reserves of 23 cents. We utilize basically the same reserves, but below the line. But if you're taking into account a retail box, there's generally speaking more than management fees involved. The taxpayer is generally responsible, as I said earlier, to maintain parking lots, lighting in the parking lots, roof structures, things of that nature. And in all my work in doing this type of big box work, I've really never seen any other county utilize less than 5%, and as I mentioned to you, upwards to 8% in many areas. They conclude to a value of $12.1 million. Again, I don't see really the relationship of the $12.1 million to the $9.9 million assessment. When you on page 17 and 18, they mentioned the Lowe's Form 10K filed, and that the property appraiser asks every year for rent information. First of all, the stores we're talking about in Seminole County are all owned by Lowe's. There's very few properties that are rented, and if there's a rent, it's generally a build-to-suit situation where an investor buys the property and the rent is created based upon that build-to-suit scenario of rolling in development costs. It's not a box that was built on spec and then marketed on the open market for people to bid and priced out accordingly. It's generally speaking a build-to-suit. So I would not have had any information to provide pursuant to that request, and that's why we rely on other big box rents. As to the lease analysis, the property appraiser is relying on. So the former Appliance Direct in Seminole County is 64,000 square feet. There would need to be a big adjustment for that because we're 135,000 square feet, and that asking rent is $7 a square foot. The second rent that says retail or lease in Sanford of 77,500 square feet, it's actually an auto dealership, and it's comprised of different, like any auto dealership, different types of buildings with utility purposes, including 18,200 square feet of office space in there and 61,300 square feet of service area. So it's just a different type of property. At 1631 Florida Mall Avenue in Orlando, the box is less than 50,000 square feet. It's tiny. It's comparatively speaking to what we are. It's a former Toys R Us space. It would be considered a junior box. It's just apples to oranges, and it's not the same type of space. And it happens to be an out parcel at the Florida Mall. And likewise, the one in Fort Lauderdale on Powerline Road, it's a 54,000 square foot space. It's just not similar in nature to what the subject is. We have provided you with a significant amount of truly big box rents in areas that are surrounding your county. We have 10 asking rents and 7 actual rents of all big box properties. I think that those markets are more similar and the types of properties are more similar, and that should be more relied upon. Skipping now through. I promise I won't repeat myself in the next cases. Let's see. The next set of lease information is at page 41.
Okay.
So the first one, again, we didn't pick that one up for some reason, but again, that's very similar to what we would use. That is I did include it. We have that property included. It's 95,000 square feet. It's a former Kmart. They're asking $750. We are 40% larger. So we're 135,000 square feet. We don't believe that $750 asking rent is out of line for what that is. But again, it's an asking rent. There would be negotiation room, and then you would have to adjust again for size. Number 2, we believe it may be a movie theater space in doing our research, and it's in the downtown Sarasota market. It's less than half the size. We just don't think it's applicable. Number 3 is just a different type of property. It's a education/office space. It has 60,322 square feet of office indicated on CoStar. Again, significantly smaller. Even if you started at that $850 asking rent, you would have to include some room for negotiation as well as adjustment for size. And then the number 4 in Titusville, 60,000 square foot, something in former Sears 10 Mall. It's significantly smaller, but CoStar indicates that $9.60 asking rent is full service gross. As to page number 42. It's hard to research when you don't have enough information, and I understand the property appraiser couldn't share some of the information, so I'll just give you my comments. As the first one, 55,000 square feet. It's just significantly smaller than we are. It's really a junior box size space. Number two is, again, much smaller square footage, a fraction of the size, different than the subject property. I would equate both number one and number two to a junior box space. Number three, I would need more information to know what it is to be able to accurately try and give you some information. And then it says, I don't know if that was a gross rent or if that was a triple net rent either. It wasn't indicated there. And as to the one in Miami-Dade County, it's not a lease start date of February 1st, 2018. There are no Home Depots in Miami-Dade that came into being in 2018. It's a renewal of a 2007. It was an option on a 2007 lease. So it was negotiated back in 2007. It's not a 2018 lease. I wasn't sure of the reasoning for giving the printouts for pure property summary on page 46. I know it shows 2 Home Depots, and the building sizes, I don't know if it was for the purpose of showing what, I think it's CoStar is estimating for rent, but they're not available. You can see under availability it says 0%. They're occupied spaces. And then on page number 47, so that Home Depot at 3455 South US Highway, I guess again they're giving it as an estimate. That property is not available for rent. I would find it quite unbelievable for the rent to be $17 to $21 a square foot for a space that size. I've never seen that, and I do a lot of big box work. I will point out to you that that property is assessed at $68 per square foot, as opposed to our $80 per square foot. I'm going to skip the vacancy information since we agree on the vacancy, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Going to the cap rate information now. Well, I guess I'm going to the freestanding sales. That's what comes up next. It's on page 56. So the first one is a Home Depot in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're far outside of our jurisdiction. I don't know what the land rate is there, but what I do know is it's a lease fee sale. There are 10 years left on that lease. Again, so it's just not equivalent. If you're looking at 10 years left on this lease, I don't know if there are additional options, but the cap rate is so low because there's an extensive period left. And again, I don't know the market in Grand Rapids. I can't compare it to a Florida market. I think we really need to look at, I understand looking outside of the county, but I think we really need to look at sales inside of the state. Sale number 2 in North Carolina, there were only 4 years left on the lease, and it actually sold at an 8.5 cap. Sale number 3 is a lease fee sale, and it was disqualified. Sale number 4 is a lease fee sale. The lease expires in 2036. Sale number 5 in Tennessee. Again, it's just outside of this jurisdiction. It's a lease fee sale as well. Sale number 6 is a lease fee sale, and it's part of a larger shopping center. Sale number 7 in Orange County is a much smaller space, and it is an out parcel to the Florida Mall. Sale number, the Crunch Fitness, is built in 2018. It's also a much smaller space, 45,000 square feet. It's a lease fee. The former H.H. Gregg, it's tiny in comparison. It's 33,000 square feet. The Walmart Neighborhood Market, the sale was not qualified. CoStar indicates it's sold on an 8.37 cap. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sales, they're just tiny in comparison. They're just not comparable. You have to look at sales that are at least in the big box category for it to be relevant. At page 57 is cap rate information. And I think I mentioned it earlier. We give you the other page, for the first page for the Boulder Group, which shows when the lease term comes to an expiration, the cap rate goes up. And really, for purposes of looking at something most comparable to a fee simple analysis, we should be looking at the 5-year and under mark. The average here of 6.9% cap rate, if you looked at the average lease term remaining, the average lease term remaining is 12.7 years. That's a significant amount of time left on a lease. So if you're going to look at it as more of a fee simple analysis, again, you'd have to bump up that cap rate in order to equate it to more of a fee simple analysis when their lease terms are expiring. And this supports their 7 they use, but again, there's a long term left and remaining on a lease, and we use a 7.5. I would also point out what I was mentioning to you earlier. Lowe's Home Improvement here is BBB+, and Home Depot down further is an A-rated store. So there is a distinction between Home Depot's and Lowe's stores as well. I think that is all of the rebuttal I have. Thank you for being patient. I know that's a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll turn it over to Mr. DeBose for his rebuttal and comment.
Yes, I'll just basically try to speed this up. If you look at our property detail sheet, petitioner mentioned that our building value actually increased. Marshall & Swift basically gives us updates maybe every 6 months and on the construction costs. So they're constantly increasing. So it's not an atypical thing where the construction cost does not go up. It goes up maybe for the last 4 years it's been going up. So that's just an explanation for that. As for the $72 that we actually used, the Lowe's is just not your average warehouse building. It does have a packaged AC. The one you're saying is average. It's like a forced AC, below average warehouse. So basically, that's why we started off at the $72 a square foot. It does have like a little bit of a small of a retail concept associated with it. So if you looked at a retail for Marshall & Swift, it would be even much higher. As for the functional obsolescence, it's been stated to us in the past that you have to show some type of photograph of the wasted space, and we don't necessarily see that in the packet, so there's no evidence of it. And a Lowe's is being leased in Castleberry. The other 3 are being owner-occupied. Lowe's is being leased. Let's see where we can start here with your packet. We'll just go straight to your cost analysis, which is on page 17. start off with a base cost of $33.81. We don't have anything in Marshall and Swift on the warehouse level starting off at $33.81 for base cost. Base costs are usually starting off, we have it at $72, you have a $55, you have a $41.75. We don't necessarily know where that base cost, there's no support documentation for that. As for your exterior wall, Marshall and Swift starts off at $19.10, and it goes as high as $28.84, so we have no support and documentation for the $15.73. That's where your heating and cooling. Marshall and Swift starts off at $7 and also $9, and you have $3.17. So you're below, we don't know what standards you're actually using, so we'd like to see some support documentation to actually support these low rates. Your big box total depreciation comparables. Which is on page 19. We really don't fully understand it, given the fact that the first one, we looked it up on the property appraisal office in Osceola County, and it actually sold for $8.9 million in 2019. So we don't necessarily know what year this sale is. It has gross sales of $2.6 million. I guess that occurred in 2000. Here it is. It occurred in 2013. They've got a recent sale on this property for $8.9 million. Port St. Richie, Florida. We also pulled this one up. It has a land value of $3.43 a square foot. It's being assessed at $4 million. It's attached to a shopping center. And if you pull it up, the sale is not even recorded on the property appraisal's website. So we don't necessarily know where that comes from. And then if you look at the Punta Gorda, Florida, pull up the property appraisal website on that one. It just recently sold for $16.8 million. It's $136.86 a square foot. So we're a little bit confused of how you're demonstrating functional and exterior obsolescence. And then the last one is basically the one in Orange County. We pulled that one up as well. It's being assessed at $7.6 million. The building value is at $32.45 a square foot. And we question the highest and best use of this particular facility. So if you throw in these new sales associated with these models, that'll definitely change your functional and exterior obsolescence. Let's see what else we got here. Keep mentioning that there's a smaller store format. It could be based off the market. Our particular area could support a larger Lowe's store versus the areas that they're moving in. It might not support a gross sales that they would like, so they'd actually build something that was actually smaller. We'd like to make a few comments about your big box asking rents, because you're using $6 a square foot. If you average all these out, it's $5.30 a square foot, so I don't necessarily know where you're getting that $6 from. And then there's no type of premium added to these, because these properties are definitely not comparable to the subject property. So your rents should probably go up. For example, your first one here, which is in Bartow, it's in Rockledge, Florida, in Brevard County. Call up the property appraisal office, because we looked it up on the website. It's actually vacant land now. It's assessed at $1.6 million, and they said they tore it down and basically going to use an apartment complex. So I don't know what former Kmart they're leasing out for $6 a square foot. So that's not comparable. As for the second one, that's in Citrus County. They actually have a sale on it for $2.3 million in 2018 at $11.08 a square foot. It's an old dark space shopping center assessed at $2.6 million. We question the size, location, and condition of the property, not comparable to the subject property. We also pulled up the one that's in Bush Boulevard in Tampa. We put the address in, and it shows up as a pawn shop. It's only 5,908 square feet. It's assessed at $2.13 a square foot. So we don't necessarily know what big lots based on the address that you're talking about. So we don't see how that's comparable to the subject property. Number 4, it's a charter school. The use has actually changed. If you pull up the Orange County website, you'll see that it's being assessed at over $11.4 million at $71.81 a square foot. It's no longer a retail facility, so I don't necessarily know what former target the petitioners are talking about. If you go to number 5, which is in Kissimmee, we pulled up the address of that one as well. It's not a freestanding building, and there are 10 buildings located on this location. So we don't necessarily know which building they're actually talking about, and it's assessed at $35 million. So we couldn't necessarily find the former belts associated with this, so it's not comparable to the subject property. Then number 6, Odessa, Florida. It's a low-ceiling shopping center ready to be subdivided and expanded according to the brochure that we have here. We looked it up on the website, so we question the highest and best use of it. Matter of fact, the owner is basically, the owner is willing to redevelop or retrofit for a long-term tenant. So it's no longer a big box. It's not comparable to the subject property. Number 7, it is now owned by U-Haul Self-Storage. The land value is at $2.19 a square foot. Building value is at $13.61 a square foot. It actually sold in 2019 for $3 million at $32.15 a square foot. Highest and best use is no longer a big box, not comparable to the subject property. Then we have number 8. It's a low ceiling, 18 foot. It's assessed at $13.33 a square foot. It's an old dark space shopping center, not freestanding. It's sold in 2018 for $17.63 a square foot. Land value is at $1.47. Building value is at $3.53 according to the property appraisal website. It's also around other buildings. Not comparable to the subject property. So I don't know how you're actually applying that rent of $6 a square foot. Then we look at number 9, asking rent. It's an old mall anchor. It's not a freestanding building. The building value is currently being assessed at $5.56 a square foot. Obviously, something's wrong with it. Maybe they went in there and stripped out all of the functional material for the mall anchor. That's why it's assessed so low. Not comparable to the subject property. And then number 10 is a former Kmart. It's a low-ceiling, dark space. It's sold for $1.4 million in 2020. Has poor condition, poor location, and the highest and best use is basically questionable. It's sold for $14.73 a square foot. The land value is at $1.10, according to the property appraisal website. So therefore, we don't see how any of these big box asking rents are comparable to the subject property. And if they were, there needs to be some form of an adjustment made to them. They're basically inferior asking rents. Okay, let's go on to the next, which is your big box actual rents. The first one, there's a current sale on it. It's sold for $78.61 a square foot. We've got a photo of it. We looked it up online. It's currently being assessed at, the building value is at $13.91 a square foot, and the land value is at $6.45 a square foot. So the land is actually being assessed more than the building. It is, I guess currently now it's an old-time pottery. It's only about 10 feet tall. It's not comparable to the subject property. we don't even know when the lease was actually signed on this, so therefore some adjustment needs to be made for that one. As for number 2, big box actual rent, I really don't know. It says a former Kmart, but when you pull up, it's called the Freedom Square. And right now it's a Burlington, Home Goods, and a Planet Fitness. So it's already been chopped up according to a brochure that we have. So therefore, $5 a square foot for a former Kmart does not represent our subject property. And the reason why we're just going through all of this is like it's highly difficult to try to do an income approach on these properties because none of them are similar to the subject property. Then we have number 3, which is Crossroads Square. It's a big box action rent. It's a shopping center. It's assessed for $12.8 million, and it's multiple buildings. It's 6 buildings associated with this. Subject property is a freestanding building, so not comparable to the subject property. Number 4 is a shopping center, not a freestanding, but it's attached on both sides. It has strip centers on both sides of it. It's in Cleveland Avenue. Basically, it's a former Sears, $2 a square foot. It's not comparable to the subject property. Then we have big box number 5, or big box asking rent. Number 5, it's a shopping center in Orange County. It's done by the income approach. It has multiple buildings attached to it. Let's see. If you look at the rents that are applied according to their website, they're using $22 and $10 a square foot. So we don't necessarily know where you get the $5.45 square foot. Orange County is using something totally different. Not comparable to the subject property. Then you have big box number 6. It's a discount warehouse. Is attached to a shopping center. It's not a freestanding. It's called Pierce Shopping Center with multiple vacancies at this particular facility. Flipping through the pages here. Something I have on that one. It's pretty much not comparable to the subject property, so we don't necessarily know what rent would be on that one. Then the last one we have is a shopping center with 7 buildings. It's called the Westfield Siesta Keys, not a freestanding site. It's assessed at $28 million. This is according to the addresses that you've placed on this property. We don't necessarily know where this one is. A part of the extra feature, it has an elevator associated with it. Location and size is totally different. It's just not comparable to the subject property. So none of your asking or your actual rents are supportive of your $6 a square foot. That's why it's very difficult to do it by an income approach. That's why the property appraisal office does it by the cost approach. So we're saying that there's some form of adjustment needs to be made to the $6 a square foot if you're looking for something that's similar in construction, similar in location, similar in highest and best use. You're using the bottom base rent that you could possibly find with properties that are not even comparable to the subject property. So it doesn't really matter what your vacancy would be, what associated with your cap rate would be. If you use a rent that's appropriate for similar properties, it would solve all this problem for your cap rate. As for your comparable land sales, let's see what we got here. Your first comparable land sales, you said it's vacant general. It's at $1.08 per square foot, according to our sales analysis department. It was a contaminated land. The majority is deemed wetlands, not comparable to the subject property. Number 2, the property was actually sold in 2014 by agreement. The 2018 deed was recorded for the sale. So the sale is a little bit old. We're using sales of 2018 as well as 2019. Then number 3, the property was majority wetlands and had to be mitigated for the St. John Water Management District, not comparable to the subject property. Number 4 is an inferior location, is suited amongst industrial use properties, will be used as a self-storage facility. It's not a retail facility. Number 5 is a property zoned A1 at the time of the sale, location inferior to retail space, shape issues. And then number 6, the property is zoned A1, location inferior to retail space. And then number 7 is a large portion of the property is low, requiring mitigation for full use, and the area is inferior for retail use. So your $3.33 a square foot that you're actually applying to your cost value, we think that's a little bit low. We think our sales are a little bit better. We also have. Go ahead.
Sorry, what page were you referring to those land sales on the petitioner's evidence?
The land sales are in the petitioner's packet number 44, page 44.
Oh, okay. That's why. All right. I can't see that page. So I just saw on page 45 I had 2 sales. So what you referred to. But, okay, we're still trying to get that evidence.
Okay. We're just pointing out a few points that all of this information that's provided by the petitioners is not as good as they paint it out to be. Okay,
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Dexter, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going through each one of them. We normally don't do that. As you said, we do it just this once, and the next time I won't do it again. We have comparable sales improvement, which is on their page number 47. The first sale is in Orange County. The land value for this particular sale is $3.50, and the building is $15.29 per square foot. There's something wrong with the building. Location, highest and best use, no longer is good for this particular property, not comparable to the sales to our subject property. We also have the second sale in Odessa, Florida. The land value is at $2.61 a square foot, according to the property appraisal website. And the building value is $12.06 a square foot. Something's wrong with the building, not comparable to the subject property for a sales analysis approach. Let's see, the number 3 actually has a sale on it, $2.5 million in 2008, and it's currently being assessed at $4.2 million. It's currently being used as a U-Haul. So the highest and best use is definitely changed on that particular property. Matter of fact, U-Haul actually owns it. Let's see. On sale number 4, the land value is at $5.80 a square foot. It's actually 2 buildings, and it's currently being used as a U-Haul, no longer a freestanding big box. So it's not comparable to the subject property. Cell number 5, the land value is at $2.97 a square foot. The building value is at $11.58 a square foot. Not comparable to the subject property. Something's wrong with it. Looks like it's being used as a U-Haul. Then we have cell number 6, $2.6 million. It's also being currently used as a U-Haul. Highest and best use is basically changed, so I don't know how it's comparable to the subject property. And then we have the last one here in Jacksonville, which is also currently being used as a U-Haul. So a lot of these facilities have basically changed the highest and best use of them, not comparable to the subject property. And we have one in Titusville. It's basically also being used as a mini warehouse storage, not comparable to the subject property. Then we have this one, which is right here in Seminole County, which is Greenway Plaza. It's basically being used as a U-Haul currently. It's basically being remodeled as a U-Haul as we speak. So the freestanding, it's not comparable to a freestanding operation. Then we have the Seminole Town Center, which we're very aware of that. Sears moved out, pretty much gutted the whole entire building, and it's not comparable to the subject property. It's attached to a mall. So we didn't hang our hats on a sales comparison approach because it's kind of difficult to do. That's why we do it by the cost approach. Really don't need any explanation for what's going on with the comparable sales here in Seminole County that the petitioner provided on page 50. A lot of them, like that one she's talking about with the Sam's Club, it's basically a steel frame building that they no longer wanted. The walls and partition were still pre-finished metal, and they had few amenities associated with it. And a lot of these Home Depots are much shorter. They're older buildings, and they're depreciated. They have less amenities and less plumbing fixtures. And there's so many different variations that can cause them to be assessed for less, so I'm not going to really go into that. And all we're basically saying, if you're going to do an income approach on it, basically make some form of adjustments to the rent in order to compare it to similar properties. And that's pretty much it for the property appraisal office.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any further discussion regarding petition 176?
I'm sorry, I do. Can you give me just a moment, please? So I'm going to try and be more brief. So as far as the big box, actually, let me take a step back. Let me talk about the first thing Dexter addressed. As far as functional obsolescence and the lack of applying any because there are no photos to determine that it could be a smaller space, we provided you with six stores recently built in Florida at page 58 of our property, in all different places, in Land O'Lakes, in Tarpon Springs, St. Augustine, Wildwood, Davie, which is in Broward County, and in Gainesville. All of them are a much smaller floor space, and this is their way of their new format. It's not because these properties couldn't hold bigger stores. It's because they have concluded that it is sufficient to build a store with this square footage versus building a 135,000 square foot store. They're still accomplishing the same output from a store of that size, which is not dissimilar to other big box stores. So that's the first thing. I don't know that photos are going to make a difference in showing that functional obsolescence should be applied when there's 6 stores, all new, all in the state, different parts of the state showing what the new format of the store is. As far as the base cost for the cost approach, so our overall base cost at page number 17 is $52.71, which is in line with the I think it was $52 we discussed earlier in the property appraisers package at page 20. They show good stores at $55 a square foot. Average stores at $55 a square foot. These stores, as you know, are basically open shell, unfinished stores. They're warehouses. They have concrete floor. They do not have finished ceilings. They have exposed beams and lighting, very little partitioning. There is nothing that would bump this up to what would be considered a good store that includes things like partitioned offices, good finished ceilings, and vinyl flooring. This is just not that. So, again, we are starting off with a base rate that the property appraiser is showing under warehouse discount stores for C average stores. I would also suggest that when you look at their CAMA system, obviously when they did their pricing and entered into their CAMA system, somebody at that point thought $53 a square foot was a reasonable number for the value of their reconstruction cost new per square foot. They are now going and redoing an analysis to come in at a higher value, but this analysis was done by somebody in the property appraiser's office. As further support for our price per square foot is that the property appraiser was comparing to Orange County. Again, I testified to 2 properties in Orange County that are both Lowe's stores, that when you look at the property appraiser's cost approach there, they are including $56 a square foot, including AC, $48 a square foot without AC. 2 of those stores are, that's what they're, that I pulled, that's what they're running them at. So again, I think that their own evidence in their CAMA system, the evidence they presented at page 20, when you look at the definition of warehouse discount store, the neighboring county with 2 Lowe's, that I just happened to pull those, starting in that same realm of the $55 a square foot, and I can testify to the fact that across the state of Florida, we do not see property appraisers starting with the base rate of $72. So as to the cost approach, I just don't think they've overcome their burden of showing that they are steeped in a factual scenario that is accurate. In addition to the fact that there's plenty of evidence out there that insinuates that the cost approach is not the way to go with a older big box property for the very reason you cannot account properly for functional obsolescence. As to our sales, that the property appraiser does not find any to be comparable. So it goes without saying, big box retail, there are, when you vacate a property, the second generation user, there are not always a use for the entire big box. So what happens many times is they demise that big box into 3 smaller boxes or 2 smaller boxes. And that's why they end up with tenants like, it was H.H. Gregg at the time, no longer, but at Burlington Coat Factory, Old Time Pottery, they demise the space, they put new tenants in there. It doesn't make the space not usable or not worthy, it's just changing what the space is. But most of these places, what they do is they offer the whole space. Many of the owners are willing to demise the space into smaller spaces. They cannot lease the whole as is. But it doesn't make it not a similar type of property because ultimately the property owner chose to demise a space to cover what they believe the market was at that time. If they can get in 2 tenants to take over the whole space for a rent that's appropriate, that's what they're going to do if they can get a long-term tenant in. So it doesn't mean the space is not similar. It was built as a big box property. We're looking at the real estate. It's a big box property. It remained a big concrete box. As to the big box asking rents, and the take that all of them are different. There are some that are older on our big box asking rents, and I readily said I was not really comparing to those. But there are a number of them, like in Orange County, which is our number 4 on our big box asking rent. Let me take you to what page I'm at. Page number 29. And I'm not pulling this information from thin air. I have all of the CoStar and LoopNet printouts. That's where we're getting our information from. But for instance, former Target, Orange County, built in 2001. He said it's not a Target anymore. No, it's not a Target anymore. It does have another use. Many former big boxes are used for charter schools now, but it doesn't change what the property is. It's a big, large, over 100,000 square foot concrete box. And they were asking $6 a square foot for that box. Built in 2001, so not old and dated. We're built in 2001. The finishes on a Target initially would be nicer than the finishes on a Lowe's home store. Number 5, a Bell store, built out as a department store, built in 2008. It's no longer a Bell store, but a Bell store also would have nicer finishes than a Target, than a Lowe's, excuse me. Number 6, a former Super Target, built in 2006, newer than the subject store. No, it's no longer a Super Target, but when it was being marketed for lease as the whole 120,000 square foot space, they were asking $6 a square foot. I would also point out to you that of all these spaces available, they range. The only one that is the same size as the subject property is number 9, which is a Dollar Tree. The rest are smaller, actually. They range between the 80,000 square foot mark up to like the 100 and low hundreds. So yes, an adjustment would be required because of size. We're larger. Again, there's an inverse relationship. The larger the store, the less the rent. As far as the big box actual rents, they are former boxes. They were converted to other things, but there's nothing wrong with that again. The number 3, for instance, the former Publix, it's now occupied by a Floor and Decor. It was a box. It's still a box. The former Sears, I believe it's still vacant. The Old Time Pottery, and I would suggest to you also, the fact that we're using some big boxes that are in line is actually better for the store. You have other foot traffic mechanisms there, as opposed to just arriving at one single big box. You can be at a shopping center that has many other destinations, and you end up just getting additional foot traffic in. So I don't think that's really a negative. Our sales, the same thing. Our sales are we have the backup information for all of them. The uses may have been changed. They may have demised into smaller spaces. They may now be used by U-Haul centers. Self-storage may be the hottest ticket next to industrial distribution center right now. So the fact that a big box was converted to a self-storage is not a negative. It's an alternative use for a big box. So there's nothing wrong with the property. There's nothing wrong with the building. There's not a lot of end users for 100,000 plus square foot spaces. But it happens to be that self-storage is very hot right now. So again, it's a box. It's the real estate. It's not who's tenanting that real estate. That's all my comments. And we're really not so dissimilar, by the way, on our market rents. It's $6 versus $7. Our real differences are in the cap rate and the use of what would be considered low expenses by the property appraiser. But as to the cost approach, I would just strongly suggest that they have a burden to overcome, and based upon all the evidence presented, I don't believe they've met that burden in supporting their $72 a square foot. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay. Property appraiser have any final comments at this point?
Yes, the $72 is for support. It's not that we're assessing it at $72. Our camera system is based off of $50. The $72 is if we looked at it individually by itself. The camera system takes into consideration all big boxes. So therefore, we're using somewhat of a discounted rate for it to look at everybody for mass appraisal purposes. So you're thinking we're actually using it? No, we're not using it. It's for support for this particular petition. And I mean, we'd have to adhere to certain criteria. And one of the criteria that we have to adhere to is the highest and best use of the property. And if we don't do that, the Department of Revenue is not going to approve our tax roll. So therefore, these big box freestanding facilities are not going to go into a shopping center. It's just not comparable. They're not similar. So therefore, that's the reason why we do it by the cost approach. No further comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't believe I have any questions. I think we're still working on getting the evidence, but hopefully we will get that done. So I was a little bit of a disadvantage not having some of those specifics as you were discussing some of the sales and rentals and the petitioner's evidence, but that's okay. Okay, so
my special magistrate, I understand that you don't have everything in front of you, so my understanding is that you're going to go back and review it on your own once you get a copy. That's full?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Excellent.
And I'll have recording to listen to as well as I review it. Because again, I believe all four properties are all Lowe's. I know one's in a trustee name, but it's still Lowe's, just like the other three, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's petition 178. So again, because we're dealing with four like properties in different locations in Seminole County, and I know we were trying to sort of streamline the discussion. I guess we can proceed by just introducing the other three petitions and confirming the value with the property appraiser, and if there's any discussion on any of those, you can have it at that time. And if it's just same argument, same evidence, everything else, then you probably won't need to have any discussion. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
I believe that would be appropriate because I'll be adopting the arguments that I made in the same rebuttal because the evidence was the same for all four properties. Would you mind terribly, though, if we took a 5-minute break just to have a restroom break?
No problem. Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to put you on hold, or would you prefer I call back?
Terry might have to answer that.
I'm coming, guys. Honestly, I would put the call on hold if that's okay with y'all.
That's fine with me.
Okay, and
Thank you.
I'll pause the recording.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to stay here.
Okay, I'm pausing.
Okay, we're just finished discussing petition 76, and so why don't I petition 175, parcel ID 1120305190000030. Same parties are present as the prior hearing and have all been sworn in. If I could just ask the property appraiser to confirm the value for petition 175 at this time.
Yes, the market just value and the assessed value are the same, $11,049,735.
Okay, thank you very much for petition 175. And is there any discussion necessary for that petition?
Same argument.
Okay.
Likewise, we'll adopt the same argument and the same rebuttal. I'm curious, Special Magistrate, when you look at the page numbers that you're missing from the other one, can you see them on this petition?
175. It's a very good question. Let me check. I thought I'd looked at it already, but let me just confirm. Hang on.
So I know one of them was page number 9.
Yep, page 7 is blank, page 9 is blank, yeah. Page 11 is blank, or not 11.
And Dexter, are your page 7 and 9 blank when you printed it?
No, they're not blank when I printed it.
see
They're
something?
blank on the portal.
The blank on the PDF that was uploaded. That's fine.
Yes.
So anyway, we'll get that solved. Any other comments or questions for me at this time? For petition
No, sir.
175? Okay.
No.
All right. Proceeding on then, the next petition is petition 177. 16, 21, 29, 5, 20, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. And if I can confirm the value, same petitioner, same property appraiser, been sworn in, parties, everything again. If I can just confirm the value with the property appraiser for petition 177.
Yes, the market just value and the assessed value are the same, $11,235,719.
Thank you. Any discussion needed for this?
Not for
We
me.
adopt the same argument.
Okay, very good. All right, and the last one is petition 178, parcel ID 172130, 300-0220-0000. And once again, parties are the same, evidence have been sworn in. May I just confirm the value with the property appraiser for petition 178?
Yes, the market just value and the assessed value are the same, $10,552,926.
John, can I interrupt?
Any discussion?
John, this is Terry. I'm sorry. I just heard from Yvette. She's going to email me what she has. Apparently, the blank pages some were pictures, but she's emailing that to me now, and I will email it to you and Dexter.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Thanks.
That's what I assumed was the problem. Had to do with scanning in photos because I've had that problem before, as I was saying. Okay, so discussion needed for 178. I didn't already ask.
Same argument.
Okay.
Likewise.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that should conclude everything. So again, I will be getting complete evidence from the petitioner. I have the evidence from the property appraiser that seems to be complete and legible and all that. So without having any additional comment, we'll conclude the 4 hearings with this evidence to be reviewed and considered, and a recommendation will be made, of which you'll be notified at a later time.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, all.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.